Why you wouldn't survive life in ancient Rome. The Colosseum stands before you, its towering walls casting a shadow over the bustling streets of Rome. As you gaze up at the massive structure, you can't help but wonder what life was like for those who lived and died within its walls. Hello friends! Well, if you often fantasize about the past and really want to know about the history of ancient civilizations, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Unthinkable Past, a channel better known for dishing out the outlandish ancient traditions of all times. Young Marcus Lucius had a day of utter misfortune. Losing all his money at dice and having a few too many shots of the lowest grade pushka, he encountered the shock of his life in a repugnant public toilet. While relieving himself, a rat carrying a disease bit him on his posterior, and to his astonishment, flames burst through the hole. And, as if his predicament wasn't dire enough, he'll be forced to fight as a gladiator in a few weeks' time to repay his debts. Marcus Lucius's plight wasn't uncommon in ancient Rome, as you'll discover today. Life in the Empire was anything but easy. While Mr. Lucius is a fictitious character, his woeful day is based on true events. So get ready to step back in time and witness the brutal reality of life in ancient Rome and discover the shocking reasons why you wouldn't have survived living there. Starting with pushka, a type of alcoholic drink that was incredibly cheap and typically reserved for the lowest classes of Roman society. Made from water, vinegar, herbs, and salt, it was often consumed before engaging in the popular betting game of dice, leading to significant financial losses for the poor. Then, in an effort to pay off their debts, some individuals would resort to fighting in the gladiatorial arena. Furthermore, the unsanitary conditions of the Roman Empire are highlighted by the hazardous and repugnant nature of the public toilets. Given these factors, it's crucial to examine the hygiene practices, or lack thereof, of the ancient Romans before discussing the daunting challenges of surviving as a child or gladiator in such a perilous society. Despite being advanced in sanitation, the Romans still faced widespread diseases and unclean conditions. Using public toilets was often an unpleasant experience, as there was little privacy and a high risk of encountering filth. Graffiti on the walls of public latrines often referenced Fortuna, the goddess of luck, highlighting the fears and uncertainties of using these facilities. The wealthy had, in fact, private bathrooms with plumbing, allowing waste to be disposed of through a sewer system. Some may have used chamber pots in their homes and disposed of the contents in the sewer, or even the streets. However, for regular working-class people, using public toilets was a common occurrence, where they would sit next to others and relieve themselves above a communal hole. Their togas might have hidden their private parts, but nothing could mask the noise and smell. And then, there were the rats, a common sight around the latrines, posing a threat to public health by spreading diseases. To add to the unpleasantness, the accumulation of methane gas sometimes caused fires, leading many Romans to continually pray whilst using the public toilet. To make matters worse, those who were sick would often use public baths alongside healthy individuals, making it easy to catch an illness in Rome. While bathing, they may have used a scraper to clean themselves and applied scented olive oils, as soap was not yet invented, making it far easier to transmit bacterial diseases. Well, the Roman Empire lasted over 1,000 years, and of course some places were filthier than others. But in general, if you were to travel back in time, the majority of you would have an issue with pooping and bathing. Moving on, women of free status generally avoided using public toilets, and even if a slave girl had to use them, she risked being robbed or assaulted. This brings us to the issue of crime. We rarely hear about the streets where ordinary people lived and worked in ancient Rome. These streets were, in fact, not safe after dark. If you lived in a city, you might have resided in slums or cramped apartment complexes with other families. Many others lived in small rooms located in large buildings called insula, meaning island. Some of these buildings were as high as 100 feet, making it unpleasant to walk beneath them at night, as the poor structures could collapse at any time. Peeking inside these shabby structures, the less money you had, the higher up you lived, due to the hazards at the top. To tell you the truth, there were numerous dilapidated and overcrowded buildings in ancient Rome, and since residents cooked in small metal boxes inside their rooms, deadly fires were not uncommon, often leading to mass fatalities. And in case of a fire, to your awe, the poor had no insurance to rely on, leaving them on their own to face the consequences. There was also no form of banking for them, making their situation even worse in times of disaster. However, the danger was not limited to just fires and building collapses. In the poorly lit streets, muggers were always lurking, making it unsafe for people to travel at night. Wealthy individuals would only venture out at night with a large entourage of armed escorts. Some of these escorts were known to beat up people just for fun, or if they obstructed the path of the rich person. The historian Suetonius recorded that Emperor Nero himself would sometimes join in on these violent escapades while disguised as a commoner, wearing a hat and a wig. Well, those who resisted were often brutally injured and thrown into the common sewer, which was considered relatively charitable coming from the sadistic Nero. On the other hand, when we talk of public security, the watchmen, known as vigils, primarily focused on preventing fires, but there were literally only a few safeguards in place to protect people and their possessions when they went out at night. However, the Book of Civil Law, Codex Iuris Civilis, did establish laws to punish criminals, as in if someone chose to be a thug in ancient Rome, they could end up in court, and the penalties could be severe. It's worth noting here that the form of justice in ancient Rome evolved over time, and there are certain documented cases of criminals who thought they could escape punishment. Well, talking of punishments, imagine you're living in one of the cramped, impoverished neighborhoods of ancient Rome, and you're fed up with the recent tax hike. Such tax upsurges were common back then, as funding the military campaigns was not cheap, and some citizens were literally pushed into starvation by these taxes. But if you chose to speak out, you'd be taking a big risk. Occasionally, there were general strikes, called secessio plebis, that were characterized by the threat of whipping or death, but sometimes brought about actual reform. Still, if you joined a protest that turned into a riot, things would go badly for you. The emperor would send in his guards and arrest the ringleaders, and if you were one of low social status, you'd be treated poorly by the courts. There were no long-term prisons, and torture was illegal in order to extract a confession. If you were found guilty of causing unrest and inflaming the public's discontent, you'd likely be whipped, or worse. Non-citizens could expect even harsher punishments, such as being worked to death in mines or quarries. If someone died during the riot, and you were blamed, you could face beheading, burning, burial alive, thrown off a cliff, crucifixion, impalement, or even being tied up in the sack with a snake, rooster, and dog, and thrown into a river. As a member of the lower classes, you might also be forced to fight in the gladiatorial arena, where you must do or die. Woof! But if you wanted to escape the miasma and danger of city life, and also have forfeited the protection that city walls provided you, given that Rome was in a near constant state of war and colonial expansion, life in the countryside could be an out of the frying pan and into the fire situation. The truth is, no matter where you lived in ancient Rome, death and destruction were always close by. So you see, life in ancient Rome was incredibly challenging, especially for those who were not part of the wealthy elite. With the lack of basic hygiene, frequent outbreaks of disease, and the constant threat of violence, it's no wonder that many individuals didn't survive. Even those who did manage to make it through would have faced an uphill battle to achieve any degree of comfort or success. Well, there you have it. I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel without any delay. Make sure you turn on the post notifications and also let us know in the comments section about your views on this weird lifestyle of ancient Romans. Do you think you could have endured the hardships of the era? Thanks for watching Unthinkable Past. Until the next time we meet, continue learning and stay healthy. Goodbye.